landscape comes into view. West, a long strip of forested area. To the east, a wide main road. Then, the image zooms in on a city square in the middle of a small town. There are several people walking around, chattering with each other, or just hanging out. They all seem to be happy and careless. In the small park, directly south of the town square, a few older people stroll along the gravel paths. The next morning, two kids are walking along the sidewalk, both with school bags on their back. The street is calm, with barely any traffic passing by. The kids pass a church, and are nearing a house with a garden surrounded by low hedges. In the garden, a man called Jim stands, shouting at the kids. He has a can of beer in his hand, and is clearly drunk. Fuckers! Scared, the two young kids start running off, towards a large school building in the distance. The view switches to the kitchen of family Smith, where Smith and his wife are finishing up breakfast. While the woman is busy with the dishes, Mr. Smith picks up his coffee cup and takes a sip. They both stop and listen. A furious expression crosses Smith's face and he slams his coffee cup on the table, stands up, and runs out the door onto the sidewalk. He comes up to the garden of James, where James stands drunkenly with a can of beer in his hand.
Shut up, fucking idiot!
Smith stops, turns, and punches James straight in the face. James attempts to hit Smith, but his blow misses. Then Smith grabs him by the collar, hits him again and then pushes him into the garden's hedge. He runs through the gap in the hedge and kicks James in the ribs, who's laying on the ground. Finally James manages to kick him against the leg, but then Smith stomps down on James's right knee, with brute force. The next day, Mr. Smith walks down the sidewalk, with his two kids walking in front of him. When they come near James' house, Smith stands still. He looks over at James's garden, and sniffs the air, while worry creeps up his face. Then he gestures to his kids to continue on, and turns around, heading for the path leading through the garden. He walks down the stone path towards the front door. When he comes closer, he notices that the door is open a crack. Slowly pushing open the door, he enters the silent house. But after a few steps into the entrance hall, he stops dead in his tracks, listening. Carefully, he investigates, but stops again when he sees a large puddle of something on the ground. When he inspects the puddle more closely, he notices it is half-dried blood, which drips from the ceiling at irregular intervals. Alarmed, Smith moves around the puddle and continues down the corridor. He briefly glances into the abandoned kitchen to his right. Then at the end of the hallway he turns left, walking up a set of stairs. At the top of the first landing, Smith peeks around the corner. He doesn't see anything and continues to walk up the second flight of stairs. Reaching the landing, he turns right towards the open door of a bedroom. The back of an office chair becomes visible, with James sitting in it. Smith enters the room, reaches out, and turns the office chair around. James' dead body flops heavily onto the ground. His throat has been cut, spraying blood all over the computer he had been sitting behind. Smith stares down at the body, shock written all over his face. In the middle of the night, the dark garden of James slowly becomes visible. It's full of shadows, casted by a large tree and a few other objects. From the second floor, a faint glow light shines through a window, probably from a computer screen. Then, a well-built man dressed entirely in black, walks onto the garden path. He wears a balaclava, and holds a large knife in his right hand. When he is at the door, he places his knife on the ground, followed by a small backpack. He opens the backpack and rummages inside. After which he pulls out a small lock-picking tool. He starts working on the lock of the door, turning the tool around. Then he pulls the tool out, opens the door, and picks his knife and backpack up again. The view switches to James, who sits behind his computer in the middle of the night, his broken leg stretched out. It is clear he is browsing online, looking to buy a firearm. Several handguns pass the screen as James clicks away with his mouse. Now, the man with the balaclava is sneaking through the hallway, knife held steadily in hand. He reaches the end of the short corridor, and turns left towards a staircase. He carefully trudges up the stairs, listening to the keyboard clicks coming from the second floor, a faint smile curling around his lips as he rounds a corner and climbs the second staircase. At the top of the stairs, the man turns right, looking at the back of James' head. View switches back to James, who's still typing away as he hears a sound behind him. He straightens in his chair, startled, his eyes anxiously fixed onto the computer screen. Then the man in black comes up behind him, and drags the knife across his throat. Blood splatters everywhere, staining the computer, window and the wall. Then the man in black grabs his balaclava, and pulls it off. It is Andrew. The director of the factory sits down behind his desk. He is studying some papers, flipping through the large stack on his desk. Outside, a truck pulls up to the factory and slowly drives into the loading dock. Three employers leave their machines and walk past a window in the office towards the still parking truck. The truck's engine stops and one of the three men walks up to the side of the truck. As the employer opens the door, shots come out of the truck, hitting the man in the chest. Two men with machine pistols jump out. One of them fires at the second employer, shooting out one of the office windows before killing the man. The third employee draws a pistol and fires twice, but he misses and gets shot as well. In the office, the director grabs the papers and a small revolver from his desk and runs to the factory's exit. While running across the industrial area, a bullet narrowly misses his head and he falls onto his knees. The director turns right and fires his revolver, the first shot hitting the side mirror of the truck. The second hits the truck driver in the stomach. Then the director gets up again and runs off with the stack of papers still under one arm. At the factory, one of the heavily armed men with the machine pistol comes running up to the broken window. He quickly crawls through, landing on the other side of the windowsill. When he looks at the director's desk, he sees that it is empty and all the papers are gone. Late in the evening, the outline of a large manor becomes visible. It lays peacefully in a less populated area of the city. In the living room, the director of the factory sits on the sofa, a newspaper in hand. He's reading an article about the recent shooting in the abandoned factory. His eyes narrowing as they take in the lines. On a small table nearby, a steaming cup of coffee sits, waiting to be drank. The view switches to two men who are sitting in a car. The car is parked at an abandoned industrial area, roughly to the opposite of the large manor. The one behind the wheel is entirely bald, while the other has short blonde hair. Then, the blonde man opens his window. He lifts an enormous sniper rifle with a long barrel from his lap, and then places it on the bottom of the small car window. The bald man briefly looks through a set of binoculars, after which he turns the keys in the ignition and starts the car, slowly driving off. Through the sniper's scope, one of the windows of the manor slowly comes into view. Then, the view switches back to the director, who picks up his cup of coffee. When he reaches for his newspaper, one of the windows shatter and a bullet hits the wall behind him. He immediately drops to the ground, coffee draining into the carpet. Quickly getting up, he runs to a spot between two windows. Then he runs to a bar, grabs his revolver from it, and drops behind it, another bullet barely missing him. He crouches, sneaking towards the living room doorway. He gestures to a large man who's standing in the entrance hall, holding a pistol. It's a butler. Then, the view returns to the two-armed man. They jump out of the car and start running towards the manor, firearms held steadily in hand. They cross the road without any hesitation, nearing the manor's driveway. At the same moment, a third and fourth man sneak around the manor, approaching the back door. One has light, spiky hair, and carries a machine pistol in his hand. The other man is well built, has short brown hair and is holding an enormous shotgun pressed against his shoulder. They open the back door and enter inside. After a few meters, they come up to a small set of steps leading up to a kitchen. They walk up the steps, disappearing out of view. Back to the director, who still stands around the corner of the doorway to the large entrance hall, his revolver aimed around the door frame. Then a shadow rounds the corner on the opposite side of the hall, followed by the man with spiky hair. The director dives through the doorway and shoots the man straight in the chest, after he falls against a glass cabinet. The director turns and runs through the entrance hall towards the doorway of a large bedroom. As soon as he jumps into the room, the man with the shotgun stares behind him and fires, hitting the wall next to him. He stands still, listening, aiming his revolver through the doorway but not seeing anyone. Several large caliber bullets punch the wall next to his head, forcing him to dive away again. Then, he makes a run for it, heading for the stairs to the upper floors. Behind a bend in the stairs, he stops, opening the cylinder of his revolver. He sees that he has 4 bullets left. He quietly closes the cylinder again, hearing footsteps below. Then, he carefully looks around the bend down the stairs, seeing the bald man aiming the machine pistol at him. A shot rings out and the man gets hit in the head, falling flat on his face. Not sure whether it was the butler who fired, or one of the other shooters, he turns and runs up the rest of the bending staircase. Having reached the top, the director turns and aims his revolver, standing right around the corner while listening to the shots coming from below. Nervously he looks at the top of the stairs, not knowing if it's the butler, or one of the remaining shooters coming up. Just around the corner, he is only able to see a shadow sneaking up the stairs. He dives away as shotgun man fires. Falling onto his knees, he attempts to shoot the man, but the shots go wide. He jumps to the man, dodging another shot and tackling him to the ground, accidentally dropping his revolver. Struggling to keep balance, the brown-haired shotgun man trips and they both fall backwards down the stairs. In the bend, they come to rest, still struggling to get a hold of the shotgun. It goes off, right next to the director's head, shattered stones raining down. Then, he gets grip on the weapon, slowly but surely aiming the barrel towards the brown-haired man. Pressing the barrel against the man's eye socket, he pulls the trigger, blowing his brains out. After briefly catching his breath, the director drops the shotgun, gets up, retrieves his revolver from upstairs, and carefully heads down the staircase again, knowing there should be at least 1 or 2 men left. Arriving at the entrance hall, he sees several bodies, of which one is the bald man with the bloody hole in his head. He continues sneaking even more quietly through the large and abandoned hallway. Then he notices his butler lying on his back on the floor, riddled with bullet holes. A brief glint of sorrow fills the director's eyes, but he quickly continues on. Revolver in hand, he turns around a corner, looking from left to right. As he rounds another corner, bullets fly by, and he dives back behind the wall. He looks into the hallway, but it is abandoned. Quickly he walks towards the kitchen on the end of the hall. When he's almost at the doorway, he gets shot in the chest, falling onto his back. Weakly raising his revolver, he attempts to aim at the blonde man, who's running away towards the doorway on the other side of the kitchen. But he misses. Realizing the revolver is empty, his arm drops, a blank look filling his eyes. The view switches to the shooter, the blonde man who fired the sniper, who is now holding an enormous revolver. He is running through the manor, frantically looking for something. When he sees that the corridor ends in a stable, he turns around and runs back through the kitchen, past the director on the ground, and into the office on the opposite side of the hallway. Hasty, he starts opening drawers of the desk in the office. When he finds a large stack of papers, he lets a relief sigh, and then quickly runs out of the office, and leaves the manor via the front door. Flashing glow lights illuminate the large manor as several police cars speed down the road, screeching to a halt on the graveled driveway. In the hallway, the director lies on his back, a pool of blood slowly spreading across his chest. He breathes pained and slow, as a team of paramedics rushes into the house. At the abandoned parking lot in front of a gigantic hospital complex, the big blonde man who shot the director walks from his car towards the main entrance. He reaches the glass sliding doors, walks through, and turns right in the large entrance hall. With a steady pace, he strides to the elevator located in the southwest corner, smiling politely to the older woman sitting behind the reception desk to his left. Once he reaches the elevator, he presses a button, after which the doors open quickly. He heads inside, pressing the button for the 3rd floor. Once the elevator is moving, he opens his belt bag, retrieving a small knife of it, which he carefully slides in his jacket's sleeve. Closing the bag again, he puts a smile on his face, calmly waiting till the elevator reaches its destination. As soon as the doors open, he walks out and starts following an older grey-haired doctor through the hallway. The doctor rounds a corner, the blonde man still following unnoticed. As he enters a restroom, the blonde man comes up behind him, grabbing him with one arm around his neck, pulling the man closer. The older doctor attempts to punch him in the face, but the blow is too weak. The blonde man violently starts pulling the doctor's jacket off. Then he takes the knife from his own jacket sleeve and stabs the doctor in the neck. The grey-haired man gasps for air, his eyes going wide, after he falls against the toilet stalls. The blonde man pulls the doctor's jacket on, and then stalks to a storage room on the other side of the hallway, where he takes a syringe from a shelf and puts it in one of his pockets. The view switches to a hospital room, where the director is asleep in a bed. A single window looks out over a large park, 3 stories below. The director's chest is covered in bandages, and several tubes are running from beneath the covers to machinery, faintly beeping next to his bed. The door opens, and he wakes up as the doctor enters the room. As soon as the doctor stands next to his bed, he sees that it is the blonde man who shot him. Terror fills the director's eyes, as he tries to scream, but he can't move, paralyzed due to the trauma of the gunshot. Slowly, the big blonde man takes out the syringe and removes the cap, after he sticks the needle into the director's arm. The man smiles, as he presses down on the plunger. As the blonde man pulls the needle out, the director's breathing becomes slower, and eventually, stops entirely. In a small living room, Jack sits on his couch, gazing at his phone. He is a bald man in his 50s, with a beard of a few days. Through a window, a small stream of sunlight filters into the room as the sun rises outside, reviewing the sparsely furnitured house. As Jack scrolls on his phone, he sees a news article written this morning. The article reads, "Early this morning, the lifeless body of James D. was discovered in his home. He appears to have been brutally murdered somewhere last night. As soon as Jack finishes reading the first few lines, he stops, shocked. He sits silent for a second, thinking. Flashback. Jack wakes up in the middle of the night. He gets out of bed to get a glass of water. When he passes the window overlooking his garden, he stops and looks outside. Suddenly, he notices a figure crossing the street, coming from his neighbor's house. But without thinking too much of it, he turns away from the window, heading to the kitchen. End of flashback. Jack sits on the couch, thinking for a moment. Then, he nods to himself, and stands up with a determined look on his face. It has become evening. Jack is standing in the bedroom at his desk, which is covered in papers. He is staring at a handmade map, which is showing his neighbor's house. There are a few markings here and there, mainly near the second floor window. Then, he places one last marking, somewhere on the second floor, after which he walks out of the bedroom. Heading for the front door, Jack opens it and goes outside. The street is calm as he walks down the short path leading away from his house, then he turns right onto the sidewalk. Coming up to Andrew's house, he stops and looks up the side of the two-story building. While he's inspecting the second floor window, a shadow appears in front of it, forcing Jack to dive behind the house's corner. He lands into a small alleyway overgrown with grass. He looks around the corner, but doesn't see anything. He gets up and quickly walks down the narrow alleyway separating Andrew's house from his. At the end, another alleyway intersects the one Jack is in, allowing him to round another corner of Andrew's house, after which he disappears out of view. On the other side of the house, he emerges from the alleyway, carefully crossing an open area of the sidewalk. Then, he walks up to a window on ground level and looks into a dark and abandoned living room. Shifting his gaze, he stares through another window on the second floor, but he's not able to see much more than the contours of a bedroom. After a while, he continues on, quickly heading around the house back towards his own place. A full day passes, without much happening. It's midnight again, when Jack opens the door and goes outside, entirely dressed in climbing gear, as he heads for Andrew's house once again. Coming up to the house, Jack pauses briefly and looks up the side of the building. Then, he throws the climbing hook up to a point where it perfectly lands and is secured. Placing his hands against the wall, he begins to climb up, using the hook to gain grip. His muscles are tensed, as he slowly ascends up the side of the house. As he nears the second floor window, Jack almost slips, but he manages to grab onto the window frame just in time. Finally at the window, he grabs the hammer with one hand from his belt, and, with determination in his eyes, breaks the glass. Without hesitation, he dives inside, avoiding the sharp pieces of glass. Sternly gripping the hammer with both hands, Jack cautiously makes his way towards Andrew's bedroom. As he enters the room, Andrew stands just around the corner, holding the long knife still stained with James' blood. A grin spreads across Andrew's face as he lunges towards Jack, who quickly dodges the knife. Jack leaps forward, ducks underneath Andrew's arm, and swings the hammer at his knee. Andrew falls on top of him, stabbing him in his upper thigh with the knife. Jack crawls from underneath Andrew, grabs his hammer from the ground, kicks away the knife, and smashes the hammer down on Andrew's back, who's still trying to get up. Andrew lies on the ground, his back broken. Jack lifts Andrew up, who's still struggling weakly. Then he carries Andrew to the window in his bedroom, and throws him straight through the glass. After a long drop, Andrew smacks down onto the pavement. Looking down through the broken window, Jack sees Andrew laying on the sidewalk. A weak smile crosses his face as he stares down at the deformed body. It's early in the morning, as a slightly older man trudges through the woods. It is Jeremy, who lives alone in a small cabin. A few sunbeams pierce through the trees, lighting up the leaves on the ground, as well as the wooden cabin itself, which is nearby. Then, something glimmering catches his attention, and he sits down on his knees between the shrubs. He picks up a necklace, which has a few bits of dried blood on it, the initials, A.L, dangling from it. Jeremy's eyes go wide, looking at the necklace that he knows so well. After a moment, he gets up and walks towards a thicker group of bushes, following a track of muddy footprints. Once there, he gets on his knees again and pulls the thick shrubs aside. A horrific sight greets Jeremy as his eyes attempt to process what's in front of him. Under the bushes, a deformed and bended body is buried partially beneath the soil. The head is massively damaged and strangely flattened out, and the back is smashed and broken. In one of the pockets of Andrew's body is a ripped-off piece of paper. As Jeremy grabs it, he can barely read. Jack, come, for, need, be, cur, ul. Jeremy sits there, horrified, his eyes glued to the paper with his dead friend's handwriting on it. Then he makes a decision, driven by unkillable anger, overwhelming sadness and fear. In his head, he sees images of Jack hunting on deers in the woods, and he puts together a plan. The view switches to a dark room which appears to be an underground bunker of some kind. Along the walls are wooden crates with munition and other military supplies. Jack crosses the room, opens a metal safe embedded in the wall, and retrieves a map out of it. Placing the map on a rough wooden desk, he picks up a pen and places several markings along a forest trail. He sighs, puts down the pen, and then picks up a small backpack filled with ammunition. He walks up to the wall where a long cardboard box sits. He lifts it up, slinging it over his shoulder together with the backpack. On the way out, he gets a mean-looking shotgun from the desk, after which he disappears into a dark tunnel. It has become evening. As Jack walks down a narrow forest trail, there are thick bushes on the sides, as well as some tall, old poplar trees. He is still carrying the strange-looking cardboard box over his shoulder while holding the heavy shotgun in his strong hands. View switches to Jeremy, who is laying on the roof of his cabin with an enormous sniper rifle in front of him. It is propped up on a tripod and has a long silencer attached. As soon as he looks through the scope, he sees Jack on the trail. But he misses, blowing a hole in a tree next to Jack. Back to Jack, who immediately dives behind the cover. He peers around the base of the tree he's laying behind, but can't see where the shot came from. Then he quickly jumps up, runs back to his cardboard box, and starts sprinting along the trail, close to the bushes on the other side. Jack gets to an open area with several picnic tables. There are a few trees scattered around, and the place is surrounded by low, neat trimmed hedges. He stops and sets the box down on one of the benches. It appears to be a cardboard dummy, complete with a fake head and a stretched out arm holding a plastic rifle. After checking the dummy, he sneaks away, back into the trees. Back to Jeremy, who furiously puts down his rifle and gets up, picking up a compact assault rifle he brought along. He slowly lowers himself from the roof, landing on the ground. With the automatic rifle in both hands, he starts running towards a bridge that spans across a creek. As he gets to the bridge, he slips down the sandy slope and almost falls, but he keeps up, quickly crossing the wooden bridge. On the other side, he runs up the short slope, back into the woods. Then, through the bushes, Jeremy sees the back of the head of the dummy and he fires. As soon as the bullets rip through the cardboard, the dummy falls to the ground, and Jeremy realizes with horror that it wasn't Jack. Slowly, he turns around, and there is Jack, standing right behind him with his shotgun aimed. Overwhelmed, Jeremy nervously laughs, quickly raising the rifle. Without wasting any second, Jack fires. Jeremy stumbles, hitting the ground hard, clutching his destroyed knee. Laughing, Jack slowly walks towards Jeremy, the shotgun aimed at his face. As soon as Jack hears the movement in the vegetation, he drops to the ground, while a bullet misses his head by a few seconds. He immediately jumps up again, and sprints off into the forest, another bullet hitting a tree nearby. Then he drops behind another tree, aims, and fires the shotgun into the open space behind him. Soil and grass rain down on Jack as a bullet slams into the ground right in front of his face. Once again he runs off, dashing through low bushes and thick vegetation. Suddenly, the ground slopes down, and Jack stumbles, falling into the water of the creek. The view returns to Jeremy laying on the ground. He grins through his pain, knowing he is not alone. In the distance, one single flash of light is visible, as the unknown shooter fires for the last time. A bright overview of the southern part of the city. The main focus is on the street south of the canal, the wooden bridge over the water, the restaurant, and then, the large house of the Edward family. The three kids of the Edwards are playing in the garden as the sun descends behind the horizon. Then, some scenes flash by, family members being stalked through the streets at night, being robbed, insulted, and even murdered. Flashback to the back alley of a supermarket. The father of the Edward family stands in the supermarket with his older brother, the kid's uncle. They are looking for a certain item in the long row of freezers when suddenly a man comes up behind the uncle. He silently demands him to empty his pockets and hand over his phone, wallet, and other belongings. As the uncle refuses, the man draws a small, sharp knife, quickly moves forward, and stabs the uncle multiple times in the chest. Horrified, Mr. Edward runs off, dialing 911 while the uncle falls back against the freezers. End of flashback. The view returns to the Edwards family, who are busy packing their belongings, preparing to move out. Later that evening, the mother, father, and two kids leave the house, getting into the car. They glance around continuously as they drive into the street, heading west toward the large bridge. Once there, they turn right and cross the bridge, gaining speed. On the other side, they pass a house and a parking lot. As they near a group of people lingering on the sidewalk, a large brick suddenly flies through the windshield, shattering the glass. Mr. Edward swerves to the side, pressing down hard on the gas pedal. He speeds up quickly as more stones are thrown at the car. Just when Mr. Edwards thinks they are temporarily safe, bullets tear into the back of the car, sending shards of glass flying across the road. He jerks the wheel to the right, shaking the car violently. They continue speeding up as houses flash past like dark shadows. In the back, the two kids sit dead still, their faces pale of fear. As the car nears a large school building at the end of the street, Mr. Edward maneuvers between the school and the garden of a house, crushing some hedges. Bumping over the uneven surface, they gain speed again, the wheels throwing grass and soil into the air. As the school building disappears behind them, they suddenly approach a ditch marking the end of the neighborhood. Mr. Edward notices it too late, and at full speed, the car races up and plunges into the ditch. Water splashes high into the air as the hood buries itself in the shallow, brown water. Mr. Edward looks around, dazed. Suddenly, he quickly opens his door, causing more muddy water to stream in. He climbs out of the car, which is nose down in the ditch. As his wife climbs out as well, he helps the two kids out. Mr. Edward turns around and sees a large group of people coming down the street they just came from, carrying a variety of weapons. As soon as he realizes what's happening, he grabs his kids and wife, and they cross the waist-deep ditch. On the other side, they start running across the quarry area. The group of people is getting closer with every second, as the family tries to escape. Later, they're walking across the abandoned quarry area. The uneven ground is full of sharp rocks, holes, and loose stones. The kids look horribly tired as their parents drag them along. They stop as they come to a divot in the ground, sloping down towards a deep hole with steep walk paths leading down. Mr. Edward looks over his shoulder and sees the group crossing the ditch where their car had crashed. Having no other choice, he gestures for his wife and kids to follow him, and they begin descending down the slope toward the stone quarry. The stars in the sky slowly fade as the family progresses deeper into the enormous hole. Small stones and rocks tumble down, kicked up by their feet. Finally, the ground flattens, and they are underground, the moon no longer visible. They round a corner, walking into a dark tunnel. The ground is littered with loose rocks, and they carefully step over them. They round another corner, continuing on. Then, as they come up to an intersection, they stop. Hearing the noises behind them, they look at each other, terrified. Mr. Edward gestures for them to keep going while he stays behind. As his wife and kids turn and walk into the right tunnel, he grabs a sharp stone from the ground and hides just around the corner. The light of a flashlight dances over the walls in front of him, and he tightens his muscles, gripping the stone in his fist. As soon as a bearded man carefully peers into the tunnel, Mr. Edward lashes out with the rock, hitting him in the face and breaking his nose. The man falls backward, unconscious. Mr. Edward drops the rock and starts running in the direction his wife and kids went. After roughly 50 meters into the tunnel, the dusty traces of his family lead down a side corridor with some carved-out steps. He carefully descends, trying not to lose his balance. Once at the bottom of the steps, he stops and looks around. The corridor ends in an intersecting one, and he searches the ground for footprints. Right as he spots several footprints leading into the left tunnel, he hears shouting behind him, and he begins sprinting into the maze. The view switches to his wife and kids, who are sneaking through an old, dusty tunnel. The small faces of the two children are streaked white with dust and tears, and they hold on to their mother as she drags them along. A narrow passage comes up on their left, and they take it hastily. The tunnel floor is full of gravel and small rocks, faintly sloping upward. After several meters, it opens up into a large, man-made cabin. The place is full of old machinery and boxes stacked along the walls. They cross the open area quickly, heading for yet another passage on the other side. After a long period of wandering through tunnels and abandoned passages, they finally come up to an old storage room that seems defensible. It's hidden deep underground and stocked with old wooden crates, likely containing explosives used in the quarry. They sit together, not knowing what to do. Mr. Edward is still wandering through the enormous maze but has managed to shake off the pursuers. His clothes are torn and dirty, still dripping with ditch water. Exhausted, he eventually finds the small room where his wife and kids are hiding. Together, they collect some old planks from the surrounding tunnels and begin building a small fire to keep warm. Mr. Edward takes a box of matches from his jacket pocket and strikes one, lighting up the wood pile. They sit down around the fire, uncertain of what to do next. Right as they begin to calm down, one of the children notices a nearby crate marked with faint symbols, showing it contains explosives. Innocently, the kid picks up one of the matches lying on the ground. Before anyone can react, the child strikes the match and touches it to the crate. Mr. Edward dives towards the child, but it's too late. A sudden burst of flames erupts from the crate, setting everything on fire within seconds. The family gets up, running for the exit. Right as they arrive, the old explosives ignite. On the brightly lit area of a gas station, a person sits on his knees next to a car, with a toolbox sitting next to him. It's already late in the evening, as the man is working on the vehicle, repairing some specific parts. Then, he closes the box, stands up, and goes inside the small gas station building. He places the toolbox on a shelf behind the cash register, but then stops, listening. After a brief pause, he turns around, retrieves a hunting rifle from under the cash register, and walks out again. Shortly after, he crosses the area behind the gas station, and slowly sneaks into the forest. As he hears the distant shots, he begins sprinting towards the source of the sound, rifle pressed against his shoulder. Using the barrel, he pushes aside some branches, dashing through the dense vegetation. He stops, now being close to the source of the commotion. He peers through the trees, seeing Jack, who shoots Jeremy in the knee. As Jack walks up to Jeremy, the blonde man rushes through the thick vegetation, in the meantime aiming the heavy hunting rifle. Jack hears him, and drops to the ground, dodging the bullet. He immediately gets up again, and runs into the trees. Taking aim, the blonde man fires again, but only hits a tree. Then he begins running as well, trying to keep up with Jack. A large caliber bullet suddenly zips by, missing him by a few inches. He aims again, fires, but misses once again. Jack disappears between the bushes on the other side of the forest trail. Slowly, the blonde man heads it again, sneaking between trees and shrubs, heading towards the creek. He carefully descends down towards the water line, and then lays down in the muddy dirt. As soon as he hears the movement in the water, he looks that way, briefly seeing Jack. The man fires, but misses. Then, the rifle clicks empty, and he quickly pulls the magazine out. His expression changes, going from determined to nervous. He searches through his pockets, looking for another magazine, finding none. As he realizes he is out, he gets up, and runs back into the woods to the place Jeremy was shot. Once he gets there, Jeremy is unconscious, bleeding badly from his destroyed knee. The blonde man stops, bends down, and picks Jeremy up, lifting him up in his arms. Then, with some effort, he sprints away, back towards the gas station, while leaving a bloody trail behind. Suddenly, Jack appears behind him, and he fires. Jeremy's head explodes in a rain of blood, brain matter and bone fragments, while the headless body flops to the ground. The blonde man runs away as quickly as possible. As soon as he emerges from the trees, a bullet narrowly misses him and hits one of the windows of the gas station. He keeps running, rounding the small building and disappearing out of view. Back in the woods, where Jack stands looking at Jeremy's body, of which the head is mostly blown away. He lifts the body up, causing more bloody brains to drip onto the ground. Then, he walks towards the creek, with the corpse in his arms. Once he is near the waterline, he stops, and seemingly with no effort, pushes the body into the water. The view slowly fades to black, as Jack watches Jeremy's corpse sink underneath the surface of the water. At the gas station, the blonde man, Kevin Ray, runs towards his parked BMW. His back is covered in Jeremy's blood, and he has the hunting rifle slung over his shoulder. Grabbing his keys, he opens the door of the car. He retrieves his phone from his pocket, and types a message to a contact, saved as Tim. "I need your help. I'll see you at 8 p.m, my house." After a while, he gets a thumbs up back, after which he turns the key in the ignition and drives off. View switches to Jack, who is standing on the wooden bridge in the forest. He watches the headless body of Jeremy, as it sinks beneath the surface of the murky water. Then, he gets his phone out of one of the pockets of his jacket, and he scrolls through the latest news items. He reads an article about a shooting in the large manor. With the article, a description of the suspect is given, along with a blurry picture. Jack realizes that the man on the picture is the exact same man as the one he saw in the woods, and the one that attempted to kill him, not even an hour ago. After reading the article for a second time, he puts his phone away, walking back into the woods. Later, Jack arrives at the abandoned manor. Standing in the large garden, he takes in his surroundings. He notices a big crack in one of the living room windows, and he immediately knows it was created by a large 50 BMG caliber bullet. He continues on, walking over the gravel driveway towards the front door. Once there, he tries the doorknob, finding the door locked. He turns around, heading around the house. Once he gets near the hedge that surrounds the garden, he jumps over it, continuing on along the side of the manor. Passing a window, he gets to the back door. This door appears to be locked too, and Jack heads back to the manor's garden. jumping over the hedge once again. He notices a large, tall tree standing in the garden. Determined, he walks up to it and begins climbing, using the many thick branches to pull himself up. Branch by branch, Jack climbs up, getting higher from the ground each passing second. Having experience with climbing the wall of a house, this tree ain't that hard for Jack. Almost at the top, a branch under his feet snaps, and it falls to the ground while Jack finds support by another branch. But without much more delay, Jack reaches the top, and he lifts himself up, over the edge of the manor's balcony. As he is on steady ground again, he walks up the steps to the door of the master bedroom, and he enters the abandoned house. Now at his house, Kevin sits on the sofa in his living room, waiting. Grabbing his phone, he sees it is almost 8 p.m, and he stands up. Kevin walks towards a wooden cabinet in his living room, which he starts to push aside. In the ground, a narrow hole with a ladder becomes visible. He descends down the ladder, ending up in a small basement-like space underneath the house. Crossing the basement, he opens a safe which is embedded in the wall. Retrieving a bundle of papers out of the safe, he closes it again, heading back up. A moment later, Kevin trudges through the house, and he opens the door for Tim. Tim is a man who has passed the age of 40. He has dark brown hair and wears a brand new suit.
Hey man, come in.
Together, they walk to the kitchen, where they sit down across from each other at the table. Kevin puts the bundle of papers on the table, sliding them over to Tim.
Alright, read this please.
Tim reads, "Contract of the murder of Kevin Ray. Formulated by the director of the factory. Signed by James B. There is some other information as well, such as some recent pictures of Kevin and information about his whereabouts." Tim puts the contract down, looking up to Kevin.
What I'm supposed to do with it?
Well, look. That assassin was killed by my hitman, Andrew A. It was a very difficult task since that James was a drunk and an idiot. The client, the factory's director, has been executed by me and my men. I'm the only one who survived it, and I got the contract in my hands. But, yeah, there's a problem. The problem is that the cheerful friend of the drunk James killed my hitman Andrew. Then I told the story to someone else, a good friend of Andrew, and I stood guard so that nothing could go wrong. But well, things did go wrong. That friend of Andrew was killed somehow, and the murderer saw me. We've got to get rid of him together.
Tim nods.
With my expertise, it shouldn't be a problem. We got this.
In the manor, Jack sneaks through the long hallway. He enters the office and sees a desk with open drawers and papers laying on the ground. Flashback to the blonde man, Kevin, who's stealing a bundle of papers after he shot the director in the chest. Back to Jack, who is quickly checking the papers spread on the ground. Then, he leaves the office, walking through the hallway towards the kitchen. Near the kitchen door, there are several large bloodstains on the ground. Jack moves around them, crosses the kitchen, and heads down the steps towards the stables. The view switches to Kevin and Tim, sitting in a car parked in front of Kevin's house. Tim sits in the passenger seat, and is holding an iPad in his hands. The screen shows one of the corridors in the manor.
As a precaution, I installed a few cameras in the house of the client just in case things went to shit.
Tim watches the footage carefully, a concentrated look on his face. Suddenly, he sees movement. A shape walks quickly through the hallway, unaware of the camera. Tim straightens.
Man, he's in the manor right now!
Kevin instantly turns the key in the ignition, starts the car, and races down the parking lot and into the street. Back to Jack, who's walking through the dark stable of the manor. He seems to become slightly nervous as time ticks on. He sees a wooden ladder leading to a little attic above the stables. He climbs it, after which he reaches the wooden platform. Jack instantly notices a small bundle of papers, shoved away in a corner, and he quickly walks over to it. It appears to be a copy of the contract, which Kevin showed to Tim. Jack recognizes the picture, which is a clear shot of Kevin. Glad to have found something, he puts the contract in one of his pockets, and leaves the stable. A moment later, Jack comes back into the manor's kitchen. For a second, he stands dead still, listening. As he suddenly hears the noise from outside, Jack immediately turns around and sprints towards the back door. Jack is running along the side of the manor, heading towards the park to the south. Several shots pass by as Jack sprints through the park towards the hospital's parking lot. As he arrives there, a small, light-weighted Fiat 500 slowly pulls up. Jack arrives right as an old man steps out, and he grabs him from behind, pulling the car keys out of the man's hand. Jack throws him onto the ground, jumping into the car. He tears out of the parking lot and into the street, slamming the door closed. Back to Kevin and Tim, who pulled up to the manor with a compact assault rifle in his hands. Tim opens his door and jumps out. He runs towards the manor's front door, aims the automatic rifle, and shoots the door lock out. Running up the steps, he pushes open the door, disappearing inside. Tim runs through the manor, his gaze following the barrel of his weapon. Once he arrives in the kitchen, he sees that the back door is open. Drawing conclusions, he goes back to the car outside, running even faster. Back at the car, Tim signs to Kevin, jumping in the passenger seat. They reverse out of the driveway, turning the car, and speeding south across Collion Road. Back to Jack, who's racing down the same road, only a few 100 meters ahead. At a crossroad, he turns left, dodging the car coming at him. Pressing down hard on the gas pedal, Jack passes other vehicles coming at him at high speed, as well as some angry pedestrians. Holding the small car straight, Jack reaches to his side holster and draws a Sig Sauer pistol, which he quickly puts between his knees in order to take the turn left onto a long street with a dead end. Kevin and Tim race down the street Jack just came through. A few car accidents have occurred, and several pedestrians have stopped along the sidewalk. As they turn left into the dead-end street, the small car of Jack comes right at them at bone-chilling speed. Kevin jerks the wheel to the right. The left side mirror snaps off, and the cars scrape against each other. Slamming his fist on the wheel, Kevin turns around, speeding back after Jack. The right window of Jack's small car has broken, distracting him. He fails to swerve around an upcoming scooter, and the vehicles collide head-on. The scooter flies through the air, landing on the sidewalk. Jack pulls up again, swerving across the road and coming up to the large city square, where people jump out of the way for the spook-riding vehicle. As he races into the street on the opposite side of the square, bullets tear into the car's back window, creating big splintering holes in the windshield. The small car begins to spin, it slips across an intersection and eventually crashes into a large tree. The view returns to Kevin and Tim in the car while they race across the city square. Tim opens his sight window, lifting the assault rifle, and aims at the back of Jack's Fiat while Kevin turns their car sideways. As Jack's car disappears around a corner, their vehicle ends up at a parking lot. Kevin crosses it while heading for the street on the other side. A moment later, they come up at the crash site, where the Fiat 500 of Jack is crumpled up against a tree. As soon as Kevin stops, they both jump out, running to the destroyed vehicle. Right as they see the Fiat is empty, bullets hit the car, and the tree next to them. Both men drop to the ground, roll onto their sides, and jump up again. Seeing Jack on one of the roofs of the surrounding houses, they sprint away, while Jack aims again. Kevin and Tim find cover in a small alley between a supermarket and a neighboring house. They quickly look at each other. Then they both nod, and Kevin kneels, forming a bowl with his hands. Tim steps on it, and with some effort, Kevin stands straight again, allowing Tim to clamber up onto the supermarket's roof. Tim lays on the roof on his belly, his rifle in his arms. He slowly straightens up, grabbing the rifle steady in his hands. Then, he fires at the faint silhouette of Jack on the roof of another house, who dives away. Jack runs to the edge of his roof, and fires twice in the direction of Tim. Tim dives away, taking cover behind a chimney. Using this as a distraction, Jack jumps across an alley, and gets onto the same roof Tim is on. He starts sprinting away, following the edge of the supermarket rooftop towards the front of the building. Tim jumps out of cover, and goes in pursuit, his eyes fixed on Jack's back. Jack turns, and bullets zip past him here. Tim aims while running, but can't get a clear shot. Jack comes up to the edge of the roof. He keeps sprinting full speed until he has to stop. He turns around, and jumps backwards off the roof, while Tim fires. Jack is clanging to a rain pipe on the side of the building. He holds on with both his hands, forcing him to drop the pistol. Tim sprints to the edge of the roof where Jack jumped down, and stares over the edge. From below, Jack headbutts Tim in the stomach, who stumbles back, dropping his rifle. Diving on top of him, Jack punches Tim in the face, but Tim throws him off. Tim gets back on his feet, slamming his fist into Jack's chest, forcing him back. Jack shifts position, now pushing Tim closer to the edge. As Jack thrusts his elbow into Tim's chest, Tim grabs him by the shoulder as he topples over the edge, pulling him along. Jack lays dazed in front of the supermarket's closed sliding door, with Tim underneath him, used as a cushion to break his fall. The city at night. In the distance, a few small flashes of light are visible. John, a middle-aged man, lays in bed, fast asleep. Through his window, a small gleam of moonlight filters in through the curtains, as the man's eyes move rapidly while he's dreaming. In his dream, John walks down a street filled with silent, staring people. They all seem to move very slowly, just like zombies. Suddenly, a man with an enormous machete stabs in front of him, stabbing people. Then, the pedestrians on the street draw firearms and open fire at each other while John dives away behind a parked car. John wakes up. He's straight up in bed, a horrified look on his face. He listens to the sounds coming from his roof, of which he thought were the gunshots in his dream. He quickly gets up, putting on a bathrobe and leaving the bedroom. In his living room, John sleepily walks up to his large window overlooking the street. He overlooks the dark sidewalk, but isn't able to see anything. He listens to the faint sounds coming from the next building over. Suddenly, John sees a blink of metal out of the corner of his eye. Amazed, he attempts to see what it is, but due to the angle, he can't see the object. Turning around, John walks out of the living room, quickly pulling a jacket over his bathrobe. Outside, John carefully walks past his front window towards the small metal object on the ground, near the corner of the supermarket next door. Once there, he crouches and sees that it is a pistol, screeched and busted. Confused, the man stares up into the star-filled sky. All of a sudden, a big shape drops out of the sky, straight at John. Astonished, John jumps out of the way. In a dark alley, Kevin moves quietly between the low buildings. He's deep in thought, trying to figure out how to deal with Jack. The man ruined their plans and managed to escape again. Nonetheless, his expression remains calm, emotionless. Kevin stops and draws a large AK-47 from his shoulder, aiming it at the exit of the alley. He continues, his eyes locked on the opening. The scene shifts to the rooftop, where Jack and Tim struggle at the edge. Both men exchange blows, Jack pushing Tim closer to the drop. Jack thrusts his elbow into Tim's chest, but Tim grabs his jacket, and they both fall over the edge. Jack lands on top of Tim, using the man as a cushion to break his fall. For a brief moment, both men lay still, gasping for air. Tim's leg is bent awkwardly, but Jack, though bruised, doesn't appear badly injured. Jack pushes himself up, rolling off Tim. He kneels beside him, reaching into his jacket pocket as Tim struggles to move. Jack pulls out a knife, and blank-faced, stabs it into Tim's stomach. Blood quickly seeps from the wound, soaking Tim's shirt as Jack withdraws the knife. Jack stands and briefly glances at Tim's body. Suddenly, he notices an older man sneaking up behind him. Without hesitation, Jack leaps at him, knocking him unconscious with a single blow. Kneeling beside the man, who appears to be John, Jack searches his jacket pockets. He finds a set of keys and examines them, picking the one belonging to a motorcycle. Hearing movement from the alley behind him, Jack gets up, grabs Tim's lifeless body and runs toward the alley entrance. He throws the body into Kevin's path just as he appears. Kevin fires into the corpse, the weight of it throwing him off balance while Jack runs off. Jack crosses the street and runs toward a parked motorcycle. He inserts the key into the ignition and climbs onto the bike. As Jack speeds off, Kevin takes aim with his AK-47, but Jack is already too far away. Bullets ricochet off the motorcycle as Jack weaves through the cycle path, disappearing between the buildings. He takes a sharp turn to stay on course, speeding along a canal. A little later, the cycle path leads onto a street where Jack turns right, driving onto a bridge. Kevin lies on the sidewalk, Tim's bullet-riddled corpse across him. For a brief moment, he is frozen in shock, realizing what happened to his friend. Then, he pushes the body away and shakily stands up. He scans the empty street, spotting the intersection about 100 feet away where Jack crashed with the stolen car. Kevin nods to himself and walks toward the intersection, trying to figure out his next move. Halfway down the street, he begins sprinting toward a taxi that is slowly driving toward the crossroad from the opposite side. Kevin stops the taxi by stepping directly in front of it, forcing the driver to screech to a halt. He opens the car door, sits behind the driver, and aims his weapon at him. Gesturing with his gun, Kevin demands the driver to head to the bridge to the south. The taxi speeds off into the dark night, leaving rubber tracks behind. On his motorcycle, Jack races through a narrow alleyway that leads to an outstretched industrial complex. He tears out of the alley mouth, and factories stretch to the horizon as Jack drives across the open area. He crosses a broad, empty street and stops in front of a large warehouse. Getting off the motorcycle, Jack checks what he has left. But all he has left is Tim's slippery, blood-stained knife. He grips it tightly and walks toward the open door of the warehouse, thinking about his next move. Inside, the abandoned warehouse is pitch black, only lit by a faint beam of moonlight coming through the open doors. As Jack walks deeper into the darkness, a yellow taxi pulls up about 50 meters away from the warehouse. The taxi stops, and Kevin carefully steps out. He closes the door, then opens the driver's side and points his rifle at the man, who's gagged with duct tape. Kevin gestures toward the warehouse, and the driver hesitantly steps out, his eyes filled with terror. Inside, Jack crouches behind a large stack of wooden crates. He thinks about Tim, who made the mistake that led to his death. In his mind, images replay of Tim bleeding out on the sidewalk. Jack wouldn't make the same mistake. His muscles tighten as he grabs Tim's knife steady in his hand, hearing the footsteps approaching the warehouse door. As a shadow blocks the light from outside, Jack leaps up and stabs the knife into the belly of the taxi driver. As he pulls the knife out, gunfire rips through the air. He dives behind cover as more bullets tear through the crates. Jack realizes he's trapped, and he sprints into a narrow path between the crates. Outside, Kevin calmly places a new cartridge in his weapon, putting the spent one away. The trick with the taxi driver had worked, but Kevin felt a slight regret that Jack turned out to be not as smart as he had thought. Slowly, he stalks towards the open doors, and silently enters the warehouse. He carefully steps over the driver's corpse, and then hides behind some crates riddled with bullet holes. Quietly, Kevin climbs on top of the stack of shaky storage crates to get a better overview of the place. Above his head he sees a metal catwalk leading away into deeper darkness. Suddenly a figure jumps down, and lands on the unstable tower of wooden crates. Kevin and Jack plunge down between the collapsing, splintering boxes. Kevin fires, the bullets ripping a crate apart. Jack whips a large crate at him, but Kevin swiftly dodges the object, which then slams into another large stack, causing a domino effect of falling crates. From behind a pile of still standing crates, Kevin shoots at Jack, who searches cover again. Kevin runs from his spot and pushes over another pile of large boxes. The stack topples over, and some of the boxes hit Jack as he tries to jump out of the way. Then, he jumps at Kevin, lashing out with his knife, but it gets stuck in a crate behind Kevin who grins, and Jack gives him a cut to the jaw. Kevin stumbles, losing his weapon as Jack launches at him again. Kevin headbutts the man in the face. Jack stumbles back and falls, blood spurting from his broken nose. Kevin dives at his AK-47, grabs it, and fires. Jack manages to dodge the bullets, but is too weak. He slumps down against a stack of still standing crates, looking Kevin in the eyes. Kevin smiles, and eventually pulls the trigger. Blood, brains and bone fragments splatter across the crates Jack was leaning against. His body slides down onto the ground, where it lays still in an expanding puddle of blood. The view slowly darkens, with Kevin standing over Jack's corpse. Images flash by. Kevin behind a desk in the major's office of a town hall, signing some official papers. Kevin in disguise, threatening people and haunting them, forcing entire families to flee out of town. And then, Kevin, who is sitting at an old fireplace, reading through the contract of the director. Later, he drops a plastic bag of folded up papers into the water of a canal, watching as the contract floats away. Now, he's sitting in his major's office again, with a faint smile on his face as an assistant brings him a cup of coffee.
Thank you.
This is the ending of Chapter 6.